Oh, gosh, hello, hello. We are going to have a very laid back day, being lightly philosophical today. Today, we are talking about pseudo elements, pseudo classes. Yeah, I'm going to try to describe what a pseudo element and a pseudo class is to all of you. But for folks who are joining us live, hello, folks who are live. Could I ask some of you to try and describe to me what is a pseudo class or what is a pseudo element? And the reason I like to ask y'all is I have kind of a challenging time making this make sense. Oh, Baking points out, oh, we're a pseudo class. We're a class of learners, but only under certain specific conditions. Oh, well, I like that. Yeah. So, oh gosh, let's come up here. Here we are in our notes, having the chillest possible time that we can in a big, weird, stressful world. Doop, doop, doop. Can y'all see, look, okay? Yeah, so Rita's really helpful here. Rita's like, okay, so a pseudo class, it lets us specifically, it lets us target and identify either a class or an element, but only when it's in a certain condition. Okay. Coop. Mel's like, oh, we could talk about a pseudo class as a keyword used to determine a set of rules without writing them out. So positionally the first element of this type. Oh, that could work. That could work. Yeah. I often have a hard time with this because for me, a pseudo class or a pseudo element is specifying that you want to write CSS rules for a class that isn't always going to exist. Maybe it's only going to exist in certain positional conditions, or maybe it needs certain user behavior to exist. So in Greek, pseudo means fake or false, and the pseudo classes and pseudo elements are the ones that aren't always there, if that's not too fluffy and philosophical. So, gosh, listen to me. So, yes, Johannes is really helpful. Oh, so pseudo could be something that mimics something, like something that feels like it should be a class, or is a class, but sometimes. Yeah. Mel's pointing out, and we briefly talked about functions when we talked about doing some math with CSS. And Mel's like, oh, do you know what these pseudo classes feels like functions to them? And I can feel that. So, hey, here's a class that exists, but this class only exists when certain conditions are met. Nice. So let's actually start to dive in and look at them and see if that makes these make any more sense. So with pseudo classes, we can select elements based on their state, so what's going on with them right now, or at the time, or in their position. Okay. Pseudo classes are written with a colon after the selector. So if you're writing your CSS, you would write the selector, the condition, your CSS rules. Yeah. Gosh, it looks like a lot of folks in the chat are sleeping real hard this week. Same. So here, for example, we've got button hover. Somebody who's not me, what do we think this button hover would do? So if I'm saying the element I want to target is a button, and actually this looks like a type selector, so this would be all buttons. What does this hover do that's setting a pseudo class? Yeah. Let's come over here and let's look at this in real time. Okay. So here we've got, actually linked to their style sheet. Love it. And the example button. And here in the styles, we've got button active. Okay, so in our example, we've got button hover, and here we've got button active. Oh, okay. So here in our free code camp supplied notes, we've got, and can we see this okay? I might want to make this a little bit bigger. Gosh, here we go. Maybe a little bit smaller so we can actually see it. My mistake. So here, the element, the pseudo element we're talking about is, here's a type selector for buttons. And here, the pseudo condition we're adding is when this is active. So when I click on this, it turns bright green. Let's change it so that it reflects what we've got in our notes. We had hover in our notes. Actually, no. I lied. I love to lie. So let's leave button active. Let's add button hover here. We'll make the background pink. Yeah. So here, we've got two pseudo elements going at the same time. And we've seen already that using this example, when I click on the example button, when it's active, it showed me bright green. But now that I've added the pseudo class for button hover, I'm not clicking it, I'm just hovering over it. And when I hover over this, it turns pink. When I click on it, when it's active, oh gosh. Oh, I see what the issue is. So I think I was saying here, when I hover on it, it's pink. And when I click on it, it's green. This is kind of a hard one. Before I reverse these, clicking on this still made it pink. Can someone who is not me give me a spoiler for why having button hover this pseudo element as pink? Yeah. So Eulidel's on the right track. So here, the sequence matters. Think about the logic. Why would the sequence matter? Why are these two pseudo classes going to clash and need to be put in a specific order to make them work? Remember that these pseudo classes, these active ones, only happen when there are really specific conditions. So here, when I hover on the button, it turns pink because the button hover pseudo class is activated when the user is hovering over the button. And here I'm going to click on it and it turns bright green. Stunning. I love it. I'm going to come. So, and Johannes makes the good point here. So, oh, cool. Do you know what? When you're active, when you're hovering over this and clicking, you are, like when I'm hovering over this button and clicking, both of these pseudo classes are actually active at the same time and they would clash. So I am both hovering and clicking. Both of these pseudo elements are active. They both exist at the same time. So I need to stick with active being the second one in the CSS hierarchy, because when there's a conflict, it'll stick with the second, the most recent, the furthest one down in the file. Ooh, but in our nodes, we didn't have button hover is a different color. We had button hover is changing the cursor. Ooh, let's see what this does. Okay. I can't tell. Can y'all see on, I'm never sure if this shows on streaming. So let me check. When you can see my arrow, you can see my arrow, you can see my arrow. When I hover, boom. We see, no, we can't see. Dang. We can see a little bit. We can see that I've got now a little pointer. And when I click on it, we get that hover. That is a really good technical question. Juliet is asking, here's a technical question. When we're loading our CSS, does the browser refresh the page or somehow rerun the style sheet top to bottom for every action? So what's going on here is the browser is applying the CSS in order. So it's saying, I'm going to start at the top and apply these CSS rules as I see them, unless something it gets us more points on that specificity scale that we learned. And this is the cascading behavior. So it's not having to reload every time, but loading stuff with CSS, unless something's gone really, really fast, is so quick that we wouldn't usually see it. Oh gosh, our cursor style is usually set by the operating system or the browser for people who have custom cursors. I think the operating system, but I'm going to save that and come back to it. Or I might ask our technical expert backstage to look that up. So let's come back to our notes. So here, we were looking at a pseudo element for our button hover. That's active. Or we can also make this positional. So if I say, hey, this first child element. So here we've got an unordered list. Yeah. The first child of the unordered list is going to be this one that says 1, huh? Here, I've got some really, really specific rules. I've got an unordered list, and here I'm saying the child of it, the list item, the first child of that unordered list, go ahead and color that purple. This doesn't require the user to do anything, to focus on it, to click it, to make it active. But if there wasn't a first child for this unordered list, this pseudo element wouldn't exist. And there's a bunch of other these. We say the last child instead of the first one, the first element of this type, checked if there's a checkbox, or focus if you're in it. Don't worry about it. Trying to learn all of these all at once right now would probably be a lot. But we can always come to the end docs. So we've seen two different types of pseudo elements and pseudo classes. Yeah, user action and positional. So some of these user action pseudo classes. These are I can't spell. User action pseudo classes are classes where the conditions to make the class real are triggered by user behavior. Just typing that into the chat as well. So when users interact with the elements on your page, you have the option to say, hey, when they do some of these things on my page, I can give them the option to have experiences change based on these user actions. A really common one would be to make, I've clicked, our links don't have color change. Oftentimes, if you click a link on a web page, afterwards, that link will then be a different color based on it. So we've already seen hover. So when where am I? Who am I? So here we had a hover setting for this button that changed the cursor. We had an active, so when a user clicks this or activates this element, it's going to change according to the style rules. Focus. So this is especially useful for users who are using keyboards to navigate. So when an element gains focus, for example, if you've tabbed over to it, visited if the link has been visited, checked for when a checkbox or radio button is checked. Oh, focus within. So this is like focus, but a bit more specific. This is saying, hey, if you're focusing on this element, or if you're focusing on one of its children, do this. or enabled. And we saw enabled when we were looking at forms, huh? Or disabled. Let's say a button or a form has been disabled and you want to give it specific types. Where are we? Where are we? And then target. So here we've learned about the URL fragments, and we could use those to target as well. And we're going to go a little bit quick through these just because I find that pseudo-classes and pseudo-elements are kind of conceptually wobbly to talk about. Wobbly is weird, huh? But here, I think if we hurry through the notes, and we can come back to the notes, we can come back to your notes. Oh gosh, and please do ask me questions as I go. I believe that my brilliant colleague Edda is dropping stuff into the chat as we go. Oh, we've got somebody asking when we're going to. Oh gosh, I'm rubbish. Thank you. Yep, sorry, sharing tabs is the hardest possible thing. We've got somebody asking when we're going to do colors, and I believe that we've got colors in the schedule for Monday. But if you come to, and thank you very much, y'all, for giving me the heads up that I was on the wrong tab. If you're ever wondering what we're going to be focusing on what day, the Spring 2026 boot camp will have all of the schedule. Okay, so pseudo-classes and pseudo-elements can be especially useful for forms. Forms, especially if they're nice and big, sometimes we want to draw people's attention to things. Some of these could be focus. Say, hey, if my user's got a whole bunch of different fields they're writing stuff in, maybe I'd like to change the color, or maybe I'd like to bold or highlight the field, the input field where my user is currently hanging out. The hover, okay, so maybe if somebody's hovering over it, we've seen this. The checked state, I really like this. So visually styling, visually specifying when an input element is required. Oh, and a lot of people really like to use valid or invalid as pseudo classes to say, hey, you've given me like an email address and it's valid. Okay, I'm going to turn it green for a valid input, or maybe red when it doesn't work. And we could style input elements that are disabled, that have the disabled attribute, to sort of gray them out, make them look a little bit less useful or a little less interactive. Oh, I see Mel in the chat saying that I had asked y'all to fuss at me to fix my website. Literally why we started a minute late is I'm fighting with, gosh, to preview. When right before we started, I was fighting with the CSS grid to redo my website, which is not very good right now. But websites are websites. They can't hurt us. We can style input fields with auto field, optional, in range or out of range. So to give people visual hints when they're in or out of range that we set with our min and max attributes on forms. Okay, so all of these ones we've talked about so far are the type of pseudo classes or pseudo elements that are triggered by user actions. But we can also have a whole field of these that are location based. So some of them are links. I say, hey, if I have links on my page, love a link, and users haven't clicked on them, I want to set specific style rules for that. Or wait, visited, say, hey, do you know what? I want to visually make sure that users aren't going back to the same links if they need them, if they don't need them. Oh gosh, we've got a couple people asking about the valid and invalid pseudo class example. Yeah, let's see if we've got some examples here. All right. Here we've got the editor. Oh, so input type email. Let me think. How do I want to do this? I'm just grabbing the MDN documentation for that. I'm grabbing the invalid one. And let's have a look at that together. Okay, and this gives us a really, really good example of why we might want to do this. Yeah? Got a really good question here. I'm also saying, how would we use valid and invalid without the style flickering as the user types? Oh, let's check and see how this feels. Yeah? I'm going to steal this because I love to steal. No, it's MDN. We're borrowing the example. Let's come back to here. Let's grab our style CSS. Right now, gosh. Yep, Prama's like way ahead of me. You're like, no, you just put invalid color red. I know. I'm lazy. I'm brutally lazy. You're very kind. And Brabazaba was also like, hey, can we look at these in the real time? Heck yes, we can. So here, let's have a couple different things happen. So here, if I'm focused on this, I don't know how well, that's not useful. Okay. Let's see if turning this background blue. Are y'all able to see that a bit better? Oh, I see. The issue is that when I click away, obviously, I'm not focused on it anymore. Okay, so right now we've got this setup where, trying to tab between these two R's, murder. But input invalid. And let's go ahead and do input valid as well. And I'm going to go ahead and go a little bit further on these. I'm going to add background colors. Not because we usually do this, but because I think it's going to make it a little easier to see. Yeah, I want to see how this changes as we go, if that's quite all right. So, where am I? Who am I? So now, when we're focused on this, when we're focused on the field, it should be red. When it's an invalid input, the background should turn red. When it's valid, we should get a green border, and the background should turn green. Yeah? Gosh. So, I'm not going to worry about the focus at all. I'm going to take that one away. We just want to see valid and invalid, huh? So right now, why is this showing as green? Maybe. Let's try, because our type here, I'm going to check this again, make sure our input type is an email. Okay. Ooh. This is exactly what, was it Mel? Oh, I love this. Why is the default valid even though we haven't given any input? I'm going to look this up. Oh gosh, really helpfully, we've got this. Oh yeah, because it's not required? I don't know if required, but like, okay, let's change this. Where am I? There's too many of these. Oh, do you know what? Edda was backstage and I was like, Jess, it's because it needs to be required. Okay, y'all were absolutely right. So here, if it's not required, valid by default. If it is required, invalid till it's valid. Okay, that feels weird, but this is programming. Programming loves some weird logic. Okay, Prama makes a really good point. So, you know what, this should have some kind of intermediate state, right? So right now, we've got invalid or valid. There could be, can anybody think of some ways that we could add? So the difficult part with valid and invalid is this is a Boolean, and we'll talk about Booleans again and again in programming. And Boolean is sort of an A or B, a 0 or a 1, a true or a false. And it's kind of hard to have a middle ground between those. Yeah, Mel makes a really solid point, and this is us learning all in real time. So it looks like in a form on the email field, an empty string, it's valid as long as that's not required. Yeah. So here, if I had an I, doesn't change. Well, let's try hello. Hello doesn't change a thing in the world. I get that outside, we're still red. Oof, oof, oof. Oh. Oh. So hello at example passes as valid, even though I'm pretty sure that's. So don't forget that email validation. Is this a real email? Am I sending this email to someone? And email form validation. We talked about it way back in the day when we talked about email forms. This is a lot like, you know how when you ask an LLM a question, it doesn't always give you the right answer. It just gives you an answer that's shaped roughly correctly. Here, all this validator is doing is saying, hey, I'm checking to see if you have some of the components of this being valid. Yeah. So here, so if I say example, I say dot, and this says, no, this is invalid again, because I think you need something behind that. And here, I can give it top-level domains that don't actually work, but it'll still tell me, hey, this has the basic parts of me being able to see, is this an email? Is this email shaped? I'm going to come way back here. Yulido's saying, oh, now I got to know how email validation works. Is a type of regular. I also don't know. This is probably going on my list of things to check next. Where am I? Who am I? Where am I? Oh, valid and invalid. Thank you y'all so much for being like, let's get these questions in. Okay, so we're back to the location-based. Link, any link. So we could set rules for any link where they've been visited or unvisited, or target the element that's the target of a URL. Ooh, there's an experimental local link pseudo class. I didn't know this, but this experimental one right now, no browser supports it. So you could use it, but it would mostly be for your own fun. All right, this one's really kind of hard for me. I found this conceptually weird. We don't really learn about the document object model much, but when we're talking about a document tree or the document object model, we're talking about the hierarchical structure of elements in the HTML document. We can make pseudo classes that target elements based on their position within this document tree. Okay, so we talked about root a lot. So root is like, hey, I want to set a rule for everybody. And this is kind of a difficult example. And I think this is a difficult example because it's previewing something we haven't played with yet. So this is also an example in your free code camp notes or your free code camp theory. And what we're doing here, don't freak out. We are previewing a concept called variables. We're going to learn about CSS variables, but variables are a concept across different kinds of programming languages. They're a way to have a keyword hold a value. Yeah. I like to think of a variable as having a box. The box has the variable name on it, and then you put something in the box. So usually I have a big plastic bin that I have moved it. Let's say this is my variable. Oh, I don't want to use one of my Post-its. And my variable is called hi. I've written hi on this. You absolutely can't see it. It's very unhelpful. If I want to put something in here, what's a good value? Oh, use my headphones. Now, every time in my code where I reference the hi variable, I'm not saying write hi here or use hi. What I'm saying is go to the hi variable, go to where I've defined the hi variable in the code and give me what was in that box. Give me the value that the variable name corresponds to. Mel's asking, hey, the local link is experimental. It's not supported yet, but maybe if we did want to include it, could we use a class or pseudo class? I'm going to save this for the end because I'm not really sure. Is there a better way to do it? I think we might want to, if we wanted to do this, but didn't want to use local links, we could probably, I'm going to think about, do you know what? I might have to think about this and bring this back next week. You could, I'm not sure if it's the best way to do it. I'm reasonably sure this would work, but what's the best way to do this? I don't have a good and immediate answer for you. Sorry to be rubbish. So here we've got root. So we're saying everything on our website, unless we've set a more specific rule later on in our CSS. And here I'm setting up some variables. I'm going to say, here's our bad website club black. And oh, yo, look how scary this is. Look how scary this is. Because earlier, when we've been doing colors, we've been saying black and purple and pink. #0B0810. Yikes! It's fine. It's fine. We're going to learn about variables in more detail later on. It can't hurt us. I mean, it can, but not in a deadly serious way. And we're going to learn about this different way to do colors. We're going to do that on Monday. This is called a hex code. It looks really scary, but it gives you a lot more sort of granular power over, actually, I want this specific color. So here, within our root, we could use empty. Say, hey, I want to set some style rules that only apply to elements with no children. With the nth child, first, second, fifth, we could target elements based on their position. So I want to say the nth element 2 can set style rules just for the second, or the last, or could be the last, or the nth last could be the second from the last, or the fifth from the last. Or n could also be odds or evens. Oh, do you know what? Geddes makes a really good point. The pseudo root makes you think of the star selector, doesn't it? And that's because these aren't just saying this ID or this class or all of these elements. We're applying logic and having the styles only trigger for the elements and the classes where the logic holds up. I'm going to move on from this fairly quickly and let y'all experiment with this if you want and see how it feels. Yeah, and B points out that that star is a wild card in almost every programming language. With the first and last elements, again, I'm going to let y'all play with this on your own and see how it feels. Just because, ooh, we've got the only child. I like this one. The only child is like, hey, I've got this container. The div, I only want this to trigger if there's just the one child, which I think is really fun. With first of type or last of type, we can trigger the first or last occurrence of a specific element. Okay. And here, I'm going to let you copy and paste this into your work on your own side, just because I think it's a little bit reductive to have these beautiful, beautiful notes and then a tired old woman read every single word of them to you. So we've got the nth of type, where we've talked about, I want the third element. Yeah, I want the third, here we go. I want the second paragraph element. Okay, so within these, I've got the div class and container. Our paragraph element, I want the second of the paragraph element to be bold and red. So we've got a div, that's not a paragraph, don't worry about it. I do see a paragraph, this is one. But here I've said nth of type, I want two, the second of type. That means this big, the second paragraph should be, I'm pretty sure, red and bold. I'll let y'all check this out in your own time. Okay. So this is really, really great because I saw a bunch of folks who've done other programming languages in the chat say, oh, this feels like a JavaScript, or this feels like functions. This does feel a lot like a function. This is us applying logic. And these style rules only getting activated, only getting applied makes more sense, when the conditions are met. But that means we can use functions to make these even weirder, right? So is a pseudo class that accepts one or more selectors and matches those elements. Gosh, look at this. What is this? So I could say, here's a rule I want to set for my section H1, so that H1's within a section, and H1 with an article, H1 within an aside, and nav within an H1. I could set all of these rules for 25 pixels, or I could say, hey, if this is an H1 within a section, or an article, or an aside, or a nav, then please make the font size 25 pixels. Yeah. Is so heckin' specific. If you wanted to aim for where, it's pretty similar, but a little bit looser. Has allows us to style the parent element based on the child. So here, when an article element has an H2 as a child, then add a 2-pixel solid hot pink border to the article element. It's the main reason to use is in the case that there are changes to the browser. It says is more forgiving if the sector is incorrect. My understanding is I would personally always tend to use is just because that extra specificity is really, really useful. To be honest, I have to admit that I've used is a couple dozen times in writing CSS, and I don't think I've used has ever. So yeah, I would use it because of additional specificity, but the whole world is weird. Oh, that's a really great question. So premise, like, is this the same as article H1, H2? So is this the same as styling? Well, let's check. Y'all know that when we're not sure, we want to get weird. So we were saying, where am I? The challenge here is I think our syntax might be a little weird. So here, the article with the caret and the H2 is going to be targeting the H2 that is the child of the article. Whereas what we're doing here is really reversing that. We're saying, wait, where am I? Where am I? Who am I? Article has H2. I'm specifying that this styling is going to be applied to the article. Let's write both of these into, gosh. What do we have in our what do we have in here? Okay. I've got an article, la, 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 la. Gosh, Mel's absolutely right. So if we said article, caret, oh, heck, I'm so sorry, loves. If we said article H2, that's going to style the H2 element. And if we say instead, yep, has will apply the style to the article. But hang on. Let's check and see. Okay. Our article's text. Okay, so we've got, actually this feels a little weird because our H2 is coming before our article, but it's okay. Ooh, so Mel has got a spoiler for us. So has here feels like it contains a Boolean. So if article contains H2 style article, this is, yeah, so the logic here feels really good, huh? Let us copy over this code. Okay. Okay. So this article, oh, we got those conceptual rectangles I'm always promising you. Our article has an H2. So this is styled the entire article. Okay. But the example we were looking at here is, what if we said article H2? Our background is yellow. Stunning. Cool. So this gives us more an idea where we're pointing. The article caret H2 is saying, hey, if you have an article and if you can find an article that has an H2 as its child, style me that H2 yellow. Whereas has is saying, cool, do you know what? If you've got an article and that article has H2 as a child, only then can you please apply these style rules. Let's try it. So if we had an article that has H2, but if I wanted to style one that has both an H2 and an H3 differently, I think that because you need to set different style rules, cool, we've got two different points. Hang on. So the first question is, what would happen if we did, would things be different if things were different? Okay. Am I even spelling articles right at this stage? So, what is spelling? So here, yeah, if you wanted to say an article has H2, but if I wanted to style one that has both an H2 and an H3 in it, could I say article, well, thank you very much, H2H3? I absolutely could. Edda really helpfully checks this out here and says, has can have multiple selectors. And Uladil makes a solid point to say, cool, Jess, that was kind of helpful, but we need to see another article that doesn't have an H2 to see how this works. And heck yes, we do. Let's change this, because right now it's applying to both H2 and H3. When we take that away, we see that we've more narrowly set that down. So let's talk through the logic real fast. If my article has an H2 element, draw me a border around that article, please. Cool. For any elements that are the child, for any article elements that are the parent of a H2 element, you can please style this yellow. I'm not sure why I always say please to my CSS. So, oh, hang on, the question is, Baking saying, okay, if I have an article that has both an H2 and an H3, and you want to style that one differently than one that only has an H2, let's try that. Okay. So here, we need to change the syntax. Okay, somebody's in here saying that I am the type of person to say please and thank you to your AI chatbot. I promise that I do not say a single thing to that AI chatbot, because if I wanted to do a bad job on something, I would do it myself, and I do. No, I'm a little bit of a Luddite. I know more and more folks are using AI tools for more and more things these days. I do things because I like them. Yeah, absolutely correct here. So this is Uladil saying, hey, if I wanted to have H2 elements that aren't in articles, and I have these this code written, I would have to specify that somewhere else in my CSS. Heck yes, you would, because here the article has is only applying when this is only applying when the article itself has the H2 or H3, but below that we see the article, the H2 elements that are children of articles, and any H2 children that are not, any H2 elements that are not the children of articles would need to be styled separately. Oof, thank you. Y'all are patient as heck. So, okay, but what are pseudo-elements and how do they work? Pseudo-elements, oh gosh, pseudo-elements are, so we've been talking about pseudo-classes the whole time. Pseudo-elements are even worse. They're even more terrible. Everything's terrible forever. But this is just CSS. And even though it's terrible forever, oh heck, it's terrible forever in a way that can't hurt us. Oh gosh, somebody's asking about our Luddites from a video game. And y'all have absolutely hit on one of my favorite things. So I won't sidetrack all of class. I'm just going to drop it into the chat. But during the early Industrial Revolution, Luddites were a group of protesters who were protesting against labor conditions, working patterns, some aspects of capitalism. But what they were really focused on, and people often talk about, is they were focused on how bringing in new technologies into textile making, into weaving, they were worried that this would mean that textile workers would go from being skilled labor to poorly treated, like mass labor. And they weren't wrong. Okay, we're coming back. Because I will talk about Luddites and history all day if you let me. So pseudo element is like a synthetic element, a fake element. But hmm, at the end of this, I'm going to ask y'all to try and explain pseudo elements to me in the chat. Oh, Paul makes a good point. The Luddites were really specifically focused on mechanical looms over manual looms. Yes, 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 yes. Stop. Y'all, I'm not going to look at the chat for a minute because everybody's talking about Luddites and they're recommending a book I've read and I like. Cool. Pseudo elements, let's think of them as artificial elements. And they don't really exist. But what does really exist? So we use the double colon when specifying that. And like before and after are really, really common ones, right? Let's talk about this in our notes, and then we'll look about it in the demo. And then I think I might actually not go through a lot of the assignment. So we do have a little bit of code work. I think the pseudo elements has been pretty brutal to get through. I'm so sorry I might abandon y'all and ask you to sort of poke at that on your own. Pseudo elements and pseudo classes, I think, can be really, really difficult to understand when somebody says, it's like this, it's like this. And I don't want to get between you and your understanding. So trying these steps on your own for the activities, I think is going to be a lot more useful than watching me do it. Okay, here we've got a button class. The class is a like button. Yo, what do you think this would do? What do you think? Like button before. Mel, my love, thank you. Sorry, that's again overly familiar. Hey, we can use these pseudo elements like before or after, and we could draw shapes after the. Hell yes, heck yes, we can. So here, I bet you $1 that this would draw a cute little hot pink heart directly before that. Let's make this happen. Let's come over here. And we've got pretty much the same thing, huh? Like here we've got our style sheet linked because you can tell Free CodeCamp wrote this and not me because the style sheet is actually linked. We've got our styles.css. We've got a ton going on. We've got all the styling from our button, but that is just a distraction. That can't hurt us. Here, this button here has the class CTA button. And we've got before, the content is the star emoji. And here, we've got some extra rules saying, don't you move that positioning around. I want it over to the left 3 pixels. I want it up a little tiny bit. I want it this size. And I was saying, hey, does the element need width and height to draw the pseudo element? Y'all have me consistently delighted and confused. And that's such a weird question. I love this question. Hang on. This is a weird question. I'm going to come back to this is okay. And I hope I'm not making you feel weird with me going, this is the weirdest question. One of the things I love best about teaching is I love when somebody asks me a question where I was like, where did you get that? What is it like in your brain? That is such a good question. I don't know. First, let's look at what this feels like, and then let's make our element no size and see what it does. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so here we could do different stuff to the content. Let's write a little bit of our own. So we got .cta button. Okay, after, and we could say the content here is oh gosh, what's my favorite emoji? Oh, I quite like the hedgehog emoji. I'm so sorry to just do what I like, but that's the whole point of making your own websites. Oh, check it. So here we saw this actual like position absolute, left it. And I think the reason they've decided to do that is if you don't, she is, that hedgehog is right kissing on the learn more, isn't she? All right. Mel, where's that absolutely? And please, please understand that I mean cursed in the most delightful question. Does this element need width and height to draw the pseudo element? Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's. It has no width now. Oh gosh, you know what? I think CSS works even better when you actually write it. And this is great because we're still seeing this little lip. And I think the reason we're still seeing this is the padding doing that? Yeah. Oh, okay. The padding was doing that. You know what? We're going to get rid of all of you. We're going to get rid of every single bit of you. Okay. Why are we still seeing this little tiny bit of blue? And why are we still seeing the text? Oh, this is a really, really hard conceptual question. Sorry, I'm very cursed. And I think the reason we're seeing this is our element size has gone down to nothing, but it still has content inside it that we can see. Get rid of the. And yep, Johannes is just like, okay, but when we added the text to the button, doesn't that automatically give it height? It would usually, but we've done something really cursed here by saying, hey, by default, this button is going to be big enough to hold all its content. I've taken that content. I've taken the artificially reduced the content. So here, this is button. So we still have the text. CTA button. I'm gonna get rid of that position. You know what? I'm gonna get rid of all of these things. I'm gonna try and figure out why am I still seeing oh, okay. Mel's like, what if we do appearance done? I think that we're still seeing this little tiny bit just because that's the default indicator. That's the default behavior for a button, that it's going to show me something even when there's nothing. Let's do cool. So this is nice and cursed and weird. And I love things being nice and cursed and weird. So we still see, we do have a little bit of an outline for the button. Yeah. All right. Hang on. This has been delightful, but I'm conscious that if you let me, I will just get weird and experiment all day. So this would let us change the first letter or the second. Yep. Oh, and it really, really helpfully, somebody in the chat, where are you? Where are you? And we've got folks saying, oh, if you didn't want to do this with pseudo classes, you could use like background images instead. And get us here saying, hey, this pseudo element for first letters feels like those old engravings on books, don't they? Where you'd have this like oofty big decorative letter. And you could do that. You could change the font or the style. Display none would take the element out. If we use display none, it would take the element out of the DOM. So wouldn't. Sorry. I'm not crying. I am having an existential spiral. Now that's an extremely good question. So display none would take the element out of the DOM. So how would before and after as pseudo elements work? I have absolutely no idea. We could figure this out, but I'm going to give you some, you're grown people don't have homework, some extra solo work of experimenting with that a bit yourself. I am super duper sorry that usually I will stay all day with y'all. Oh yeah, Dom, really teach the document object model in the boot camp, and I don't love that we don't teach it. Here's the MDN for it. It's the sort of hierarchical structure, the document representation of how the website's laid out. Oh, cool. I want to get through the rest of the notes, but I'm so sorry that I will have to escape in a little while because I have super important Thursday things to do after this course. So if you have any more questions, chuck them in the chat and I will chat to you about these before we go, except for if it is a question that makes me briefly disassociate and contemplate the universe, I may say that is a next week problem. Marker will allow us to change the marker on list items, which I quite like. Then we've got like placeholders or spelling. We can always check the MDN docs. Let's check out the decide greeting card. And I'm really, really excited about this one. I am unfortunately not going to do this with you, partially because I'm going to go pack up to go for bookbinding in a moment, but in a more plausible sounding excuse, because I don't want to try and drag y'all in any specific design direction. I'm going to lovingly ask y'all to take a look at this on your own. And as well, let's talk about, yep, y'all are going to be working on doop. So tomorrow we're going to have the live stream session at the exact same time, except you will actually have Carmen teaching with you. And don't forget, some of you are watching this in the future. Maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's Friday. If you are watching this asynchronously, you already know, but for those of you live, the videos are always available after the fact on YouTube. So before chatting to Carmen tomorrow, if you can, try and work through as many steps of the Design a Parent-Teacher Conference form as you can. The Build a Job application form, I found this took me a while, so I might lightly suggest working on it over the next couple of days. Oof. Garrett pointed out that, like, do you know what? Somebody could be watching this a few hundred years from now. And it's nice to know, I was going to say it's nice to know people are still around if you're watching this a few hundred years from now. But you're not necessarily people. How scary. Then we're going to ask you to read the review and take notes. And there's no real cheating because there's no real tests. I mean, there's a test at the end. It's optional. But please complete the quiz on your own, just because this is to test your own knowledge. I am going to lovingly and kindly and gently and softly say goodbye to all of y'all today. But the video will always be available offline or online, but later. And you are so lucky to get to work with Carmen tomorrow. She's way nicer. Oh, don't tell her how mean I was to y'all, okay? Bye, team.